Recording is in progress. Good evening, y'all. It is July 11th, a Tuesday. This is Echo Evening and Weekends Code Platoon, full stack web development, web stuff course. We're on module 2, which is web stuff, web week 7, day 2. Yesterday, we covered just HTML, CSS. Today, plugging in JavaScript to this DOM part 1. We're basically interacting with the DOM using JavaScript. You can write JavaScript straight into your HTML if you really wanted to. We're going to be plugging in its own file and referencing it, which is probably the best way to do it if you're going to be building it like this. I don't ever want to see an HTML page 7,000 lines long with JavaScript and CSS in there. That is a nightmare. So we break it up as best we can. So JavaScript, we've used it. We've used it with Node. Today, we'll be using it in a way that we've not probably used it before. And basically, maybe I don't want to make an assumption that I'm right here, but I'm pretty sure JavaScript's whole purpose is to do this. It's like the main purpose of JavaScript, interact with the web directly. It can do a lot of other things. They called it JavaScript because Java already existed. Real quick trivia, does anyone know what JavaScript used to be called? I should have known this off the top of my head. It was called what? Mocha? Interesting. Netscape, that's what I was looking for. Or Netscape Communications Corporation's Mocha, whatever. LiveScript, had a bunch of names. JavaScript. People knew what Java was. They said, hey, that'll be popular. JavaScript and Java, not the same whatsoever. They don't work anything alike. If anything, JavaScript works more like Python than anything else I've seen. But we're going to be using it, interact with the DOM, do stuff like that. JavaScript is the programming language of the web, and that's what it should be. It shouldn't be anything else. JavaScript can update and change both the HTML, CSS of your web page. It can also perform calculations, manipulate, and validate data because it is a full-blown whammadine programming language. For example, when you enter your name into a form, JavaScript will be writing the code in the background to validate the form. That is true. And 99.9% of the cases, that is true. There are a few other languages that can do this and do this. They're not very common because they're not as widely used. They're not as widely flexible with different browsers. But Ember, I think, is one of them. I don't keep up with them because I feel like they're all going to be short-lived, but we'll see. So with JavaScript, we can query the DOM. And the way we do that is by targeting the HTML tags. In the HTML file, we want to use a script element to use our JavaScript file within the web page. You can either put your script within the head element, where the title element is also located, blah, blah, blah. Or you can include, and you do this by including a source attribute. You can also throw your JavaScript at the bottom. We're going to be doing it this way, using this source. What do they call these? Attributes in HTML, my bad. Source attribute for script within the head tag that will point to some JavaScript we have living elsewhere. The defer attribute within the script element indicates that the browser to execute the script after the DOM web page has been parsed. I learned that today. I thought it just kind of did this normally. I thought this was the default. Evidently not. Evidently it's rendered at the same time, run at the same time. I don't know how that would work otherwise. So let's create an index.html page. We're here in this spot. Code index.html. That'll open a file called index.html. VS Code sees that. Did y'all know VS Code is the most popular IDE? I assumed it was, but I verified it. It's like way the most popular by a huge margin. All right, cool. That's a note. Doc type, HTML. This is fine for some browsers. A lot of this stuff is not necessary. A lot of these things will work without all this extra nonsense. These meta tags. Does anyone know what these things are? Have you seen these before?
Is it just like clarifying a type of characters or something like that?
Yeah, it's more just information. Generally, meta stands for short for metadata, and metadata is typically, I don't know, encompassing data about the whole project. More or less, this stuff is not readable via the DOM. However, the browser has access to it. So the browser can query for this and say, hey, what kind of chart set you want me to use? Rather than make assumptions, which it probably will do, and it probably defaults to a lot of these, plugging in these meta tags can kind of tell the browser exactly what it wants, or rather exactly, what, I don't know, it's information for the browser to use, potentially useful sometimes. This is what we get into what I call boilerplate, which is a bunch of junk that is almost always going to be pretty standard. You just throw it in there. It's HTML. Get used to it. If you become a front end developer and are dealing with the different types of browsers that are in use, you'll get a lot more experience with these than I have. For now, I throw them in there, and I don't throw them in there. I've never had a problem not throwing a bunch of metadata in there, but I don't run a website that's used by a bunch of people. Script right here. I'll talk about this one. Since we just talked about HTML yesterday, we're gonna run through a few things. Won't assume you know stuff. I'm just gonna talk about them. This is the head tag. Anything that you really don't want showing up on the page, but you want to be read first, is going in the head tag. That's why metadata is here. That's why title is here. Title is what you see. Since VS Code is built from Chrome, it's going to be this kind of thing. But it's these tags. This is what the title is. So anything I put in title is going to go in that tab there, Jordan title, just to prove that. When we do start this up, some more data about the descriptions, viewport. Not too worried about all that. I'm focused on script, source, app.js, async, defer. Within our body, we got a H1 tag, H2 tag, and a button. All standard stuff. How do we look at this? This is HTML right now. How can I see what this is supposed to look like?
You got
drag it in your browser.
How would I open it in my browser?
You can either like run open and then the index HTML, I think, from the command line, but I think you also can just drag your index HTML like as if you're putting it in as a website, and it should get the path.
That's right. That works. That works. Another thing, which we'll actually talk about later. Yeah, there's a live server. Jordan's preferred method is typing in open because it's there and it's quick and it's easy and it works all the time. But using this live server, we can keep it running, and this will update and also take on stuff from my browser extensions. And this will update as we go. And this is kind of nice for development. As you all have seen, maybe I like developing as you go. I like it populating and running as we're writing stuff out. So Platoon teaches this use of live server of using VS Code. I think it's great. There are other ways, but I think this is easy. All right, so yeah, this was the next bit. To see your web page in browser, we'll use VS Code live share extension. So if you don't have that, I'd like you to get it. Go to extensions, search up old live server, find the most popular one. Is that what I got? This one's what I got. What's this one? Find the most popular one. Make sure it looks good. Oh, not that. Okay, so it is this one. It's got this icon on it. You'll install it. I don't think you have to restart VS Code. And then whenever you're looking at an HTML page, also you can read everything about this extension ever if you'd like. I gotta fix that. If you're looking at an HTML page, this live server button, which is now gone. Oh, here it is. It was replaced with a port that's running on. That will show up. You can click it and it'll start your server up. Easy peasy. Cool. Since we only have HTML, the page doesn't do anything. In order to make the page change based on user interactions, we're going to need some JavaScript, or CSS if you're real fancy. But basically, it's not doing anything. So we want to see some stuff. We have talked about this app.js. We pointed out here, I said, hey, we're going to be putting our JavaScript somewhere else. So source is app.js. Notice this is not up a level or anything like that. This is or even in JavaScript or something. I think you normally would plug something in like I don't know. There's a lot of different things you can call this. We're gonna just have an open file called app.js. There's a lot of different conventions for where you would keep your JavaScript, and I don't want to sell you the ones that I've seen. So all we're going to do is create this file. So code app.js. That should open up right here. And we're just going to slap in some real easy to understand JavaScript code. Console.log JavaScript loaded. Where does that write? I don't see it here. I don't see no running server over here. We're going to use developer tools. There's a few ways to get there. Depending on what you're using, there's different hotkeys for it. Easiest to remember, if you like your mouse and you want to use that, you can use inspect. For Macs, which I think most of you are on, is going to be Alt. What is this other key called? Alt, I forget. What's the Mac key called?
Command Option.
Command Option. Oh my God, sorry. I work strictly on Macs, but I strictly use PC keyboards, and I always forget that it's called Option. And I'm like, oh, it's not the Windows key. So Option Alt I, and that will open this up. A lot of cool tools in here, a lot of cool things. We should go over them at some point. We will be going over them at some point, especially in React. Mostly elements is a way to break down everything you see here. The more you blow this up, the more it's going to look like your HTML file with some extra stuff thrown in there. All this dark reader stuff is my plugin, which you'll also be able to see here. But I'm interested in the console right here. Mine's over on this side. You can put it over on that side. Maybe I'll move it over there. Is that, how do we get this back over there? I forget now. Mine's on the bottom for now. I forgot why. I forgot how I moved it to the bottom. Many of the yours will show up on the right side. It can show up on the left side and top too, I believe. Don't freak out if yours doesn't look like mine. All right, I could have just read ahead and not showed everyone that I didn't know what I was talking about. So we can inspect it. Look at the console.log. Or you can look for the view menu. I don't know what the hell this is talking about. I heard that in my life. You want to look at it from here, y'all, because this is how we inspect things in JavaScript and on the web page. Almost everything you're going to need is coming through here. All the console.logs, all the elements, some other things that don't matter quite so much for this level, but network is a big one. Network, you can see like the actual calls being made, as well as sometimes the packets. We won't get too deep into that right now, but those are the three I often look at: element, console, and network. All right, cool. So logging is great for debugging. Users won't find that very interesting though. In order to do anything with JavaScript, you'll need to go through a routine. Basically, you're going to grab the HTML element. You're going to attach some listener to it, basically saying, hey, if this happens, do this. And then you need a function that references the action. This is how React works as well. When we're building out actions that we want to fire off, functions, things like that, we need to attach them to the HTML element. In React, you plug them directly in, straight into the HTML element. Here on old raw HTML JavaScript land, we're going to be referencing them. So to grab an HTML element, there's a lot of different ways to do this. We're going to use query selector. I like query selector. It works easy to, it's easy to understand. There's it grabs the first one. There's a lot of different options you can pass it. This one's cool though. It's going to run basically through the entire document object, and it's going to have access to a lot of stuff. Basically anything that shows up on that document, and then as well as all of the HTML tags, it'll be able to kind of break them down and give you way more information about them than you'll ever find useful. I'm going to show you that now. So in your app.js file, add this cool. Also, JavaScript loaded button is sometimes nice to keep in there. We don't really need that anymore. One thing about JavaScript, if you're working with a live server, it's not such a big deal, but other times, as we move on into other frameworks, refreshing the page sometimes is not going to do enough. JavaScript can be cached very often, and you'll need to learn the hard reset. For Macs, I always, oh my God. I always give the old, why is that again? There we go. Shift Alt R will be a hard refresh. That clears JavaScript cache. You will feel crazy sometimes working with JavaScript as you update your JavaScript and see no changes on the page. If that ever happens, hard refresh your page and get in the habit of doing that. With this live server, shouldn't happen often or probably ever, but that's not always the way we'll be running our servers. So we have added this here. So in our app.js file, we're going to set a constant, call it btn. That's short for button. That is conventional. So document, which is the document we'll be looking at. It wants to see this whole document that is pulled up on query selector. We're going to look for button. That looks for the very first instance of button, which we've got one here on the page. And you should see it logged. So we've got it, we've saved it, our work is here, everything's saved. Let's see if live server spit that out for us. Oh, it sure did. Here it is. This is the button. This is exactly what it looks like for us in Elements. So that is the JavaScript printing that out. Very cool. Here are some other things you can do. Basically, all right, these are kind of silly. Basically, they're finding the first HT tag, title tag, and alert button. But this searches it by the ID. Putting this here. Okay, so I do know why it wants to show you this. Classes generally are a dot. Hashtags, pound signs, those are going to be IDs, as you saw in CSS yesterday, and that is the same. So if you want to look for a class or an ID, you would search them this way rather than, you know, just by their tag. This might be a little bit easier, a little bit better, a little bit more specific. I'd highly recommend, if you want to be querying for stuff, use an ID and search it by the ID. That's the most specific way to go get it. Attach an event listener to it. So we've got it. We've seen it. I've proved it right here. We printed it out. So we've got the object. Now we need to write some JavaScript code to do something with it. This is how we'll do it. Two different ways. One is ES6, one is pre-ES6. We're showing pre-ES6 because it still works and it's always around. Otherwise, you could use this. We'll see this a little bit more in React, but it is the fat arrow function. It binds things together. Focus on this. So button, we're going to add a listener, and it's going to be listening for a click. This is built in. There's a lot of different ways or things you can look for, but it is looking specifically for a click. This is blank for now. So the first requires you to pass in a string of the event you will listen for. In this case, there are many more options available. You can open up all these bad boys and see all the different things you can possibly do to a page. Like even it can note when the user has copy pasted you know, something. It can pick up on all kinds of actions in the page. I'm not going to go over all of them. There's a ton. Basically anything that someone can touch a page on, you can look into. We're looking for the click. So we're going to write a function that executes when the event happens. The function that you pass in will be executed whenever the event occurs on the element. The callback function takes a parameter with which is the event occurrence. So let's paste this and look at it. So got this button still, that didn't change. Writing a listener, we're looking for click, and then we're saying this is the event. We're going to capture that event. Once we've done that, we're going to console.log the event. Let's see what that looks like. Did I save that? I think our button's already been cleared. Did I oh, oopsie doopsie. Okay. going on here? That pop up. What is going on? Did I get ahead of myself?
Did you click the button?
Oh, I haven't clicked the button yet, have I? Well, I think it's supposed to just capture it. Oh, we're doing it on click. What am I talking about, y'all? There we go. Jeez, Jordan. All right, cool. So we are printing the entire event. As I mentioned before, there's a lot of crap in here. Exactly where it's sitting on the page, whether the control key was used, the type of mouse pointer or the type of pointer that, clicked it, all that junk. What we're really kind of interested in right now is just target, which has a lot of stuff in there as well, but it is the button, alert button. Yeah, I need to read what I'm doing. I swear I've run through this twice, but we're kind of frightening. All right, there's a whole bunch of stuff in it, but typically you only care about the target property. So rather than looking at the entire event, you can break it down because that is an object. As you saw me expand it out, you can treat this like a JavaScript object, kind of. Each one of these is a key and a value pair. If we want to get something specific in there, we just do the old JavaScript method of calling it specifically. This page reloads because it does that. We've got the live server. And there, that's just the target. That's all we want from this right now. That's what it is. Just showing you, you can go through that event as much as you want. You can even iterate through it, search for things, all kinds of stuff. You got a lot of control over what happens after that event and, specifics about the event itself. Let's say you want to ultimately change the button's text when a user clicks it. So interacting with the DOM, printing out to the console is fine, but Jordan, I want a page that looks like something. When I show my grandma this, I want her to see it, or my, husband, wife, kid, whatever. They want to see code that they can play with. And finally, we're giving you the tools where they can do that. Up until now, you've only been able to show your families and friends stuff writing in the terminal, and they said, that's cool, I don't care. Now you can do stuff on a web page. So the event target inner text, we're going to change to clicked. I keep not going back to where I want to go. Wish I could. I'm gonna blow that up. Anyways, just trust me here. All right, cool. So target inner text. This is gonna be the inner target of the inner text of the target, which was the button that we clicked. We can change that to clicked. So when we hit this, it's clicked. Cool. Not the most useful thing in the world, but you can see that we can now fire off actions onto the DOM. Once we've received some kind of input from the DOM. We could, instead of, changing that to clicked, we could change the whole button itself. We could change it to anything else. We could, we could probably send people to other pages if we wanted. We don't want to get too into that. That is a later lesson. But one more quick thing. These are called pop-ups. Pop-ups suck. Don't use pop-ups ever. They're annoying unless you really, really need them. But that's how you get a quick little pop-up. Hello, Platoon. It makes an alert. I say pop-up. Alert creates this alert pop-up. So that's that. Any questions about what's going on with there? About how I plugged JavaScript in and now interacting with the DOM using JavaScript. Ignore this. I think this is one of my plugins I was playing with. One cool thing, I talked about kind of at the beginning. Actually, no, I'll talk about that after I stop recording. If we have no further questions, I'm going to stop recording and kick you off to your assignments.